Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, and I guess I could call this the real day one of Path of Exile 2, because thankfully today the servers have been working, and so people are actually working their way through Act 1. My first video then is going to be all about that, the important things to be aware of, or to be thinking about ahead of time. Mistakes to avoid, and things, I personally experienced and had to deal with that I want to tell you how to deal with better than I did when I was blindly going through. We're seeing a good amount of discourse over how hard the game is, even initially here, so we want to make videos to help with that, just like this one, so let's get into it. So to kick us off for this, I want to start talking about skill gems and the support gems, how to get more of them, how to get most out of that, because it's really important. I've got a few saved up just to show you. These uncut skill gems that you'll be finding will be relatively uncommon. They'll drop from named enemies, special bosses and stuff like that, but you absolutely can quote unquote farm these if you're struggling or starve for them. In PoE 1 it was a bit different. We'd reach a town, there'd be a gem vendor, there'd be like a selection of gems, maybe you'd increase that selection by progressing the story, whatever, but you'd never find yourself without the option to buy them or get the things you want. But in PoE 2, there are no vendors, they drop, it's kind of RNG. So what I want to show you is the level up system and just kind of make you aware of how this works. As you find uncut skill gems, you can use these to unlock new skills, like gas grenade here, which I'm about to do. But the three main skills I'm using are permafrost bolts, explosive grenade, and flash grenade. And I could use this gem to level them up instead of unlocking a new skill. When I do that, you can hover over and see how it'll change. So explosive grenade, level 4 to 5, I'll increase its mana cost slightly, but I'll also increase its attack damage by a noticeable amount. But it doesn't seem like much else will change, other than its requirements. But if I were to do that, I would no longer be able to use this gem to unlock gas grenade, so I wouldn't have this skill. I experienced this really annoying thing as a early mercenary because we have a bit of an awkward start, where I was running permafrost as my main damage source. Then I went into the crypt, came across skeletons that had armor and also frost resistance. So suddenly my build felt very weak and very much a problem. Basically, with your opening skill gem choices, maybe upgrade the things you are using a little bit, but maybe also make sure to grab some other skills just in case for maybe single target or certain enemy types that are going to be a problem. If you're going to really commit to, say, an element, you will come across element resistant enemies. And if that happens in the early game before you can really overcome that with like element pen or whatever, then having some other skill options, say armor piercing rounds in my case, or a different bread and butter ability to rely upon when I need it, at least early game, I found it made an impact. On the unfortunate topic of support gems then, you're also going to be starved. Much like in PoE 1 where you'd be able to buy skill gems, whatever is available, same thing for supports, there's no real limit. There is very much a limit here because of RNG drops. So let's say I've just unlocked a skill, gas grenade, and I really want to weave this into my rotation. I do, but I have no supports for it. Right now my best option is just to keep playing and hope some drop, but you can go to areas that you've already been through. Let me show you how it works. If we open up the map, let's say I want to go to the hunting grounds. I could click on this and go there and it's probably going to have all the mobs inside of it. But I could also hold control and then click on the location I want to go to and get a new menu. Here, I could open a new instance and fully reset that location so all the mobs respawn, all the events, even mini bosses, and clear the area a second time immediately. This gives you more chance for gear drops, skill gem drops, and support gem drops. So if you're struggling, take some time to re-clear an area. Make sure you're the correct level for the area. So this says 10. If I come here at level 8, maybe I'll have a harder time. Maybe I should go back to the Cemetery of the Eternals, clear that again, and then get level 9, maybe 10, and come here. It's even better to be over-leveled because you'll have a significantly easier time clearing the area, getting the gear, defeating the bosses, if you're even one level above that location. So use the control click little trick to reset the area and farm it out. You might get more skill gems, as I found, or support gems to get your new skills online. But I want to encourage you again to explore these areas fully. As you can see in this area, the hunting grounds, we've got the Crowbell, which granted me 2 weapon set skill points and 2 passive skill points. This book that he dropped literally gave me more passive skill points to spend. It was like leveling up twice for killing this random mini boss, which obviously leads to massive power spikes if you can get to key like nodes. These optional bosses give permanent upgrades beyond just skill points like element resistance and other things. So not only is it worth it to fully explore an area for the XP to overlevel the next area and have a smooth time, but also, my god, the rewards and the drop potential. Let's do a quick chat about gear and how to really get the most out of it and how to get quicker access to better gear. Obviously, while you're in the world, you might just have drops and they might be relevant. For me, it just didn't happen that way. My weapon, which is incredibly strong for my level right now, and when I got it, essentially tripled my damage, didn't come from a drop. I literally bought this from Renly in town. Renly is one of the few merchants you'll find in the first town, and as you can see, he's got a kind of random set of gear. Don't forget that there's multiple tabs here, so number 2 and 3 have stuff. You want to fill your empty slots as soon as possible, right? But obviously, Renly also sells weapons. If you're using a martial weapon like I am, this could be huge for your damage. Let's look at what he's selling right now. He has a blue kind of meh one, 6 to 10 physical damage there, and then he also has an incredible one, 15 to 36. If you hold Alt while looking at items, you reveal more information about it, such as the item level. So the weapon that I've got right now is item level 14. This decides the potential rolls that it can have. So maybe all of these crossbows could have like increased physical damage, but a higher eye level weapon will actually have a potential higher roll of that increased physical damage. And so Renly was selling this incredible crossbow for like 2,800 gold, which was a lot for me at the time. But it was 5 eye levels higher than the weapon I currently held, and the damage numbers were literally double. Not to mention the affixes and other perks we'll get into. If you want gold, the best thing you can do is just farm out an area you're comfortable in that's not slow, get the XP, get other drops, bring back gear and sell it to the vendors. As you progress the story, you will actually refresh the stock of the merchants in town, so he might offer me different crossbows, and eventually as I get to higher level, he'll offer me higher item level options as well, which is an important thing. If you're looking to identify then, you're going to need scrolls of wisdom, which just, come from drops. Una also sells them for 25 gold a pop, so it is worth considering. But there is an NPC that you'll unlock via the story called the Hooded One, who literally identifies items for you like those scrolls of wisdom, but for completely free. So it might be worth it to, wait a little bit on some of those items to use the free version with the Hooded One once you have him unlocked. He also unlocks refunding passives, which, by the way, cost gold and a lot of gold. So my big advice here is to be a little bit careful. If I wanted to fully respec this, it's going to cost thousands of gold, and right now, I have barely 6,000. I want to make sure I've got enough gold before I go for this respec, because if I don't, I could find myself restarting this respec process, running out of gold during it, suddenly having way less actual investment in this passive skill tree, and now I'm weaker until I get that sorted. So yeah, be careful on the timing on this, make sure you got enough gold. So let's talk about selling gear and when and how to do it. So we've got a bunch of stuff here, and actually a couple of them have slots in them. So when should you salvage? When should you disenchant? When should you sell? First up, my rule for salvaging right now, especially during Act 1, as soon as you get that unlocked, is anytime that you have anything that has slots on it that you don't plan on using. This is really important because it's going to give us a resource we only get from this. So salvage, we get artificer shards. These turn into artificer orbs, which are these things. They add a rune socket to a martial weapon or armor. So I've added a socket to my weapon, and in that socket I put this rune, the iron rune. 20% increased physical damage. That's a big deal. But I also want to maybe freeze things, so I could add another socket to this and pick, say, a glacial rune like this one, which will add just kind of natural cold damage to all of my attacks. This, as you can see, if it went in armor by comparison, will give me cold res. And resistances are also an important thing to think about. As you can see right now for my resistances, I've got a small amount of fire, a small amount of cold, no chaos, and no lightning. Though I do have a charm that will trigger when I take lightning damage to give me lightning resistance. But soon, especially in Act 2 and then 3, I'm going to want higher resistances, and so we'll want to prioritize that. So getting an ability to take items you want to run, give them sockets, put in runes is going to be a big damage increase, but also importantly, a survivability increase. So whenever I find something I don't want to use that has sockets, you definitely want to salvage it rather than sell it. Next, for selling, ideally you want to sell something that's identified. So you can see how this helmet here is unidentified and is worth 51 gold. Let's take a scroll of wisdom and actually identify it. And now we see that it's got some pretty decent modifiers. We see that it's level 16 and pretty high eye level for what I've got right now. So instead of 57 gold, it's worth 124. I have done more than double the value of this item by identifying it before I sold it. So you could be selling all your stuff unidentified, making, I don't know, a third of the gold you could be making, especially again, once you've unlocked the Hooded One and there's no cost to actually identifying things. But if you are out of luck and ultimately you have to sell unidentified for small amounts of gold, that's always something you can do. But don't forget that with Una, we can use free disenchantment. So even though this is identified, it's going to give me 1 shard of transmutation. Meanwhile, this unidentified spike club is also going to give me 1 shard of transmutation. So generally, I sell items that are identified for gold, I disenchant items that are unidentified that I can't or don't plan to identify, and I salvage everything that has a socket in it because then I can actually put sockets on stuff I want to use. And that's the general rule that I have. Now, as a specific thing that's in Act 1 that I want to mention, when you're going through the hunting grounds, you're going to find a ritual site. This is actually an endgame mechanic just being shown to you really early in Act 1 so that they can kind of teach you about endgame mechanics early through the story, through what you're doing. By the time you get to endgame, you should have encountered them, right? And so you'll know what you're getting into as you're actually experiencing it again in the endgame. So here we get a bit of an early access to it. In the case of the ritual, as you'll find, you use the altar and it revives the enemies nearby you've killed. As we progress and find more and more altars, it revives every enemy you've killed at each altar all at once. So each following altar is harder than the last. And in the one they show us at the hunting grounds as part of the story, it also ends in a special boss. But anyway, with the ritual done, you'll now be able to use the vendor system where we've kind of generated a currency called tribute. You can then spend your tribute on the random stuff that it offers you. Here you could find something really valuable, like a weapon that could lead to big damage increase, or armor or rings, jewelry, slots that are not filled right now, like an amulet or a charm. And if none of the things offered are interesting to you, like it was the case for me, maybe they'll at least offer you some orbs or something like that for crafting. That'd be at least something. The last thing I want to talk about is general things for crafting and whether you should be waiting on it or not. So these are 4 orbs you're going to be finding for the purpose of crafting very early. There's transmutation, augmentation, regal orbs, and exalted orbs. Transmutation and augmentation are going to be the most common, and then you'll find regal orbs and exalted orbs a lot less, but certainly a bit. On top of that, we also have the thing that creates the sockets, the artificer orbs, and then for that we have runes to go into those. For transmutation and augmentation, I would say aggressively use these. For transmutation, you could find a weapon or like an item that has high quality on it, and then take it from a normal to a magic just like that. Such as a ring that could be something you really want to wear. I did this with my iron ring. It came with this potential physical damage to attacks increase. So I turned it into a magic item. And then I added an extra modifier to that using an orb of augmentation. That gave it 4 life per enemy killed. Pretty nice. Let's do an example of it right now. That helmet that I just got is higher eye level than one that I'm wearing, so I think it's a better base to work with. I like the increased rarity and the critical hit chance, but I'd prefer if it was a rare, so let's take a regal orb and turn it to a rare. Cool, now I've got 14% extra lightning resistance, fantastic. Let me use an exalted orb, and what I'll do is I'll give it an extra modifier, so I've also got 30 extra maximum mana. You don't want to go crazy with this, but if it's going to be relevant, like say a big eye level increase for my helmet in this case, it could be very useful. Especially if the base thing that I'm working with has modifiers that I care about. We get a lot of these, I recommend using them. And if you're going to have something stick around for a long while, like say my weapon, giving it sockets and putting runes in, that's also going to be a pretty big damage increase. But yeah, I think that'll about cover it for a bunch of Act 1 focused tips, things to know that will hopefully be helpful. Remember to take your time. Go to an area that's simpler and easier, level up a bit, passives make a huge impact, maybe you'll get some drops, maybe a support gem to enhance your abilities more, maybe something awesome like an upgraded weapon, or you'll fill an empty slot like a ring slot. It can be very tempting to try to speedrun and not quote unquote fall behind. We're going to have a lot of time to play this game, guys. Just focus on having fun and actually learning the game. And I'll be back soon with more videos on these early topics for Act 1, going into Act 2 and Act 3 to help you with your journey. So if the video was useful, do drop a like. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. See you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.